Terrific. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the YRBiz session. My name is Karen Dubois, and I am your MC for today's session. And today we're going to be talking about Ontario's new COVID-19 response framework and the implications for our small businesses. We are so honored today to have with us Dr. Leon Genesov with York Region Public Health, a physician, and Bill Hong Chen from Workplace Health and Safety. Today's session is a little bit different from what we've done before in that we're really wanting to hear from you to take your questions about the new framework, hopefully get some clarifications for you, and also from a chamber's perspective, hearing what your concerns are. Because it is quite obvious that this particular situation is going to be with us for quite some time to come. And so it's really about how we work together to get through it. So I'm so glad you joined us today. And I'd like to ask Jennifer Banakas from the Regional Municipality of York's Economic Development Team to say a few words of welcome. Jennifer, if you please.
Thank you, Karen. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jennifer Banakas, and I'm a Policy and Project Development Specialist with Economic Strategy at the Regional Municipality of York. Today's event is the 12th in a series of webinars designed to provide a roadmap to post-COVID economic recovery. At this time, I'd like to thank the Newmarket and Vaughan Chambers of Commerce and the York Region Business Coalition, who continue to partner with us to develop and deliver this webinar series. I'd also like to extend a special thank you to today's presenters and to Karen Dubois for organizing this event. Today's session has been designed as a 1-hour conversation around Ontario's new COVID-19 response framework. We're very fortunate to be joined by Dr. Leon Genesov, public health physician from York Region Public Health, and Bill Hong Chen with the Workforce Safety and Prevention Services. The main focus of today's session is to clarify the new framework and how it applies to your business. We know that these are challenging times for our local businesses, and so we invite you to participate in the conversation. We hope you find today valuable, and thank you once again for joining us. Back to you, Karen.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jennifer. So just a couple of housekeeping things, and then we'll get started. First of all, the session is being recorded. And as we have with the previous YRBiz sessions, we will be following up with all attendees and sending you a link to the recording so you can revisit the information. And if there are any resources referenced on the session today, we will be including that also in the follow-up email. The Zoom webinar platform that we're using has both a Q&A and a chat function. We invite you to please make use of these two venues to ask questions or clarifications if you need. And then if you have any additional questions, please just follow them up. And I think that's about it for our housekeeping. So with that, let's get started. And Dr. Genesov, I'd like to ask if you'd start us off with a few words, please.
Thank you very much. Just to start off, and I'm going to speak a little bit, but it's important to know that information on COVID-19 is being constantly updated. So please check regularly on our York Region Public Health website frequently for updates and advice at york.ca/COVID-19 and york.ca/prevent-COVID-19. And then if you have any specific questions later, I mean, besides asking the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce, then you can also go through Access York at york.ca. So I'm going to give an overview of the province's COVID-19 response framework, the new one. So on November 3rd, 2020, the province of Ontario released the COVID-19 response framework, keeping Ontario safe and open. And it's posted on the ontario.ca website. And if you download it on ontario.ca, go back to it again because there was an updated version 2 days ago when you want the updated version of the framework. So the framework includes 5 new color-coded zones of public health measures. You have green, which is prevent, yellow, protect, orange is restrict, red is control, and that black lockdown zone also finally. So each zone indicates what measures or restrictions are being applied to a particular region. And the zones will be used to adjust or tighten public health measures as trends improve or worsen, hopefully not, but improve or worsen in each region. And alongside the framework and zones, the province of Ontario released indicators which will be used to assess the zone of each region. And as of Saturday, November 7th, York Region is in the orange restrict zone. So this new approach will balance out a protective public health response while mitigating impacts to businesses in York Region. So what's York Region's response? So the top priority for York Regional Council and York Region Public Health remains the protection of our residents. At the same time, we cannot ignore the financial and personal impacts these restrictions have on our community, including the economic impact. So enhanced measures, including education, combined with strong enforcement from municipal bylaw inspectors, York Regional Police, and York Regional Public Health inspectors will support local businesses to reopen and stay open safely. By working in collaboration with our partners at all levels of government and our partners in the business community, we are confident we can support economic interests while continuing to protect the health and well-being of residents in York Region. We need your help. We need businesses' help to assist in being compliant with the new rules put forward. It's very important we follow the new rules to enable us to keep our residents safe and allow people to maintain their livelihoods. It's also important to note that our risks have not actually gone down. We've actually seen an increase in cases recently. Therefore, both businesses and as well as residents in York Region need to take care and remain vigilant. We have to continue to follow public health guidelines until a vaccine becomes available. So what does this mean for your business? So in the orange restrict zone, where we are now in York Region, public health units are expected to implement enhanced measures, restrictions, and enforcement while avoiding any closures. So here are some tips for implementing the framework. First, know your workplace health and safety responsibilities. And so these are posted on, you can look at the york.ca/prevent COVID-19 website. You can look at ontario.ca for those health and safety responsibilities. It's very important to know your responsibilities. Protect your workers. Assess your workplace for hazards. Develop a workplace safety plan. And again, on ontario.ca, there's a template to assist you in developing your workplace safety plan. And read the Ontario government's sector-specific guidelines. So there's over 130 sector-specific guidelines posted for health and safety for different types of businesses. Take a close look at those. They're going to be a very important guide for you. Ensure you have adequate supplies, such as personal protective equipment and resources for your businesses, such as posters and signages. And again, you can find posters and signages posted on the ontario.ca website and links to those at york.ca/prevent COVID-19. So let me review some of the general requirements for workplaces. So what do workplaces include? So besides our general understanding of workplaces in the framework document, it also includes sports and recreation facilities, restaurants, bars and nightclubs, cinemas, personal care services, casinos, and gaming establishments, meeting and event spaces, and we've had a number of problems recently in those types of facilities. Also, workplaces include performing arts facilities and malls. All these workplaces are subject to the requirements in the regulations that support the framework. And of course, all workplaces must continue to operate in accordance with the Occupational Health and Safety Act. Workplaces are required to comply with public health advice, with recommendations and instructions on physical distancing, on cleaning and disinfecting. There are requirements now for workplace screening, and there's workplace screening tools for workplaces posted on ontario.ca, so you can have a look at that to help you with that. There are requirements, we've had this for a while, for face coverings, but this is a recent part, requirements for face coverings at indoor workplaces with limited exceptions. I'll expand on that briefly in a moment. There are requirements for face coverings in indoor public spaces with limited exceptions. So we've had this since earlier this year. Additional worker protections are required, such as eye protection, where the worker provides services to patrons and customers, and the worker is required to come within 2 meters of patrons that are not wearing face coverings, that is, the patrons are not wearing face coverings, and they're not separated from the workers by plexiglass or some other impermeable barrier. And again, all workplaces should follow the sector-specific guidelines provided by the province and posted on ontario.ca. And again, there's links to that on the york.ca website. Importantly now for Orange, in the Orange zone, there are new gathering limits that are really important to follow. So there's gathering limits for selected organized public events. And this type of event I'm talking about, those held in non-business places, such as residential buildings like houses, apartments, condominiums, post-secondary student residences and dorms, and for social gatherings in like private gatherings in homes, in parks, barbecues, things like that. So for those selected organized public events, there's a limit of 10 people indoors and 25 people outdoors. Now the gathering limits for organized public events and gatherings, those are the ones that might be held in the event spaces and other types of workplaces. We have 50 people indoors as the limit and 100 people outdoors. So there are slightly different gathering limits for religious services, weddings, and funerals. One moment. For religious services, weddings, and funerals, the limit is 30% capacity of a particular room indoors, subject to physical distancing indoors in places other than a private dwelling. Or outdoors, there's a limit of 100 people subject to physical distancing requirements. There's also a communication and education program as part of the framework. So the Government of Ontario has, as I mentioned, sector-specific guidelines and posters to keep workers, customers, and the general public safe. And these all resources, as I mentioned, are on ontario.ca. York.ca/prevent COVID-19 has a range of resources and supports available to assist your businesses as you navigate the new changes. Just a few general specifics for keeping staff and customers safe. Please remind everyone to keep a physical distance of 2 meters from others. And if you cannot keep that distance, make sure you wear a mask. Wear a mask where required by law. So for example, you need to wear a mask in workplaces if you cannot maintain a 2 meter distance from others indoors. So in indoor workplaces, you need to wear a mask if you cannot maintain that 2 meter distance from others in your workplace. Regular cleaning and disinfecting of surfaces is important. Washing hands frequently. These are the basics. They have to continue practicing cough and sneeze etiquette. People should not come to work if they have symptoms of COVID-19, and to go for testing if people have any symptoms of COVID-19 or if they've been a close contact of a case. You can also encourage your staff to download the COVID-19 app. You can encourage people to avoid social gatherings outside one's own household, and encourage your staff to get a flu shot. I encourage everyone to get a flu shot. Very important now. As I mentioned, if you'd like more information on the status of COVID-19 in York Region, our COVID-19 interactive dashboard is available at york.ca/COVID-19 data. It's one of the most transparent across all of the provincial public health units, and information can also be reviewed by each of our York Region municipalities. So like all residents in York regions, businesses have a responsibility to have the proper procedures and policies in place to prevent the transmission of COVID-19. So let's work together to keep everyone healthy and safe. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Dr. Genesov. We really appreciate those updates. And so now I'm going to put this out to the audience and ask, what questions do you have? I do have a few already that we've received. One is there's been reference to decisions being made on where you fall in the color-coded areas based on data. And so what data is being used, and is there any way businesses can view this so they've got better ability to anticipate closures coming?
Right, so the framework document itself has the targets for each of the zones, and then you can look on york.ca/COVID-19 data, where we'll be putting up those and focusing on those triggers for each of the zones. So have a look there at york.ca/COVID-19 data.
Okay, and Dr. Genesov, is that data updated daily?
Yes, yes it is.
Okay, great. And another question we got was, we're currently in the orange range, but Peel recently went into red. So if we were to go into red, how much warning, how much advance notice would be given?
That's a good question. So as you know, so I can't give an exact time in terms of warnings. You've looked recently at Peel and the City of Toronto. There's been a few days notice given. When we went into the modified stage 2, I think there's like 1 day's notice. This time with these color-coded zones, there's been a few days notice. I think a lot of it's going to depend on the situation, how fast, how slow the numbers are rising, what the situation is. But certainly from the standpoint of York Region Public Health, we'd like businesses to have time to prepare. But we can't wait too long, but we certainly understand the need for time to prepare, and we would let businesses know as soon as possible.
Okay.
That's a good point.
I've got an open question. What numbers need to be hit for the different colors? And I'm assuming that that's in the framework document.
Right. So that's in the framework document. So I'll just hold up. So this is what I'm talking about in terms of the framework document. It's on Ontario.ca. Make sure you look at the updated one. It's updated November the 9th. And on one of the pages, I'll just turn to it. Actually, I don't know what page it is, but it has the indicators adjusting and tightening public health measures. And it has all the targets and target indicators that are to be hit, right? So most of these indicators, or all of them right now, are on the yorkregion.ca website. We're going to be putting them together into one location to make it easier for you to look at. Again, all those specific numbers are there in the updated framework document.
Right. Okay. And I did put the link in the chat session to the website that Dr. Genesov mentioned, the provinces. And there's a button on that page to download the updated framework document. It's a PDF document. We have another question. What guidance can be provided regarding the requirement for public screening prior to entry into a business establishment? So I'm assuming this is not for employees. So is there, or actually the person that asked that question, if you could clarify, but I guess it's one public screening before going into a business establishment? Oh, Dr. Genesov, did you?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
So there's one for workplaces and workers to look at. You can also use those for screening in the workplace. Oh, there's also the posters on that are available. Also give you a list to look at. But basically, you're asking about do you have symptoms of COVID-19? Have you been in close contact with anybody with COVID-19 who's tested positive for COVID-19? Have you traveled? Have you had international travel in the last 14 days or been in a hotspot for COVID-19? Right. So again, there's a list on our york.ca website of what to ask for, but those are the basic questions. And again, you can look at this particular questionnaire that's posted on ontario.ca, which is COVID-19 screening tool for workplaces, businesses, and organizations, and that'll help you too. But the basic ones are this asking about symptoms, being in close contact with anybody with COVID-19, and travel. Yeah.
Okay. We're getting a couple of questions about flu shots. Do we have any additional information on when flu shots will be readily available? Some people are asking how long it takes to book a flu shot. Can you maybe give us some updates on that?
So I don't have a lot of information right now. There are some flu clinics. First of all, there's some flu clinics run by York Region Public Health for the more vulnerable population. And so you look at the york.ca website for information on that. We're running some flu clinics for the vulnerable population there also. Again, you have the pharmacies, which are, many of them are waiting for some additional flu vaccine now, and physicians' offices. Many physicians' offices. I had a call from my personal physician last week, said, Leon, when are you coming in for your flu vaccine? Okay, I've had mine 4 weeks ago at my local pharmacy. But in physicians' offices, many of them have a supply of flu vaccines. So I also know that the province is trying to acquire more flu vaccines. You have to, I don't have an update on that. You have to keep checking with your personal physician, the pharmacy, and if you are in the appropriate group in the York Region Public Health flu clinics. There's going to be more coming, more information coming on that. So you have to look at the york.ca website for more information.
Okay, great, thanks. One of the other questions that we've received is York Region is a large region with 9 different municipalities. There are 3 densely populated ones to the south, Vaughan, Richmond Hill, and Markham. And some up north, like Georgina, that is not so densely populated, that doesn't have the same sort of incidence of infections. Is there any intention to maybe look at a difference of application of the framework within a region by zones or by municipality?
So that's a good question. So that's been a subject of discussion and is looked at constantly. There hasn't been any decisions in terms of dividing up the regions into zones. I think it's important to know that you also have to look at the rate of infection in each of the regions. Again, it's a bit higher in the more populated areas, such as Vaughan and some of the other municipalities, and less so in Georgina, but we still had outbreaks in some of these municipalities in terms of workplaces and events. And it's very important to ensure that the measures are applied consistently across the region to prevent spread. There's a lot of mobility in York Region. We're surrounded by the city of Toronto, which is in the red zone, and Peel, which is in the red zone. And we've had outbreaks at events where people have been coming in from these other regions into York Region, and we've had outbreaks there. I think because of the mobility issues, it's really important for us to be consistent across the region. But you're absolutely right. It's something that's constantly being looked at, but at this point, no plans.
Great. That's really a good reminder about the mobility. Thank you for that. We have a question, and I think this actually might be better directed towards Brian and Tracy. This one is, will any type of liability protection be provided to businesses in the case that someone has a medical issue or injury which results from mandatory mask wearing, specifically during exercise, Or do we just allow the exemptions for those that are unable to wear a mask during certain types of activity? That's a tough one, right? So assuming some sort of a medical issue happens because of mask wearing, and are there any liability protections for businesses? Any panelists care to jump in on that?
I mean, I'm not aware of the liability protection. I mean, I think that's more of that would be whole new, a new area of both litigation and insurance. But it is an interesting question. And I know from our standpoint, we do hear a lot from businesses about kind of how do they enforce that whole mask piece. So I'd be interested either from Bill or from Dr. Genesov, because they do ask it, but sometimes, you know, there's the exemptions and you can't ask, you know, for any proof of that, of course. And at some point, you know, can you ask to serve them in another way? That's a question we get asked a lot from businesses. The gym one is very specific, but I think from a general perspective, we do hear that question a lot from what are the businesses' rights and how do they, what are they to do in these cases? So I guess I would open that up to either Dr. Genesov or Bill, because I think that is a question on a lot of businesses' minds.
Yeah, just to maybe to add to Tracy's comment, I think we've been hearing in the media that just out of pandemic fatigue, people are becoming more lax in things like wearing masks. And I think some youth especially are presenting some challenges. For those that didn't see it, we did do a YRBiz session on how to implement the mask mandate, which was really excellent. A lot of really good resources and strategies there. You can find the link on both the Newmarket and the Vaughan Chambers websites. But Dr. Genesov, do you have any insight into the mask wearing issue?
Right, I know businesses are struggling with that, and it's a good question. So I think there's two aspects to it. Are there other ways to serve this particular group of residents that may have medical exemptions or other exemptions for masking? How else can we serve them? We also had, again, on, I think it was the webinar you just mentioned, a discussion from a representative from York Regional Police on businesses' rights and responsibilities also. And so that's something else to refer to also. Again, I know Dr. Kurgiel, Medical Officer of Health in York Region, one of his main themes is making sure we treat everybody with compassion.
Mm-hmm. Great question. With respect to a liability protection, which the user asked, I would suggest maybe consult with legal counsel on that and maybe look at waivers to manage the risk. But I do recall as well when we had our session on employment law in the time of COVID, we really are working without a net here, without precedents. And so really, I would say consult counsel and get some guidance as to the best way forward there. Since we're on the issue of masks, there's been some interesting back and forths now about whether people are using them properly, whether they're disposing of them properly. And I know that Workforce Health and Safety, Bill, your organization put out a newsletter recently talking about how to safely use and dispose of face masks. Is this maybe a good time to weigh in and share those tips and strategies for our attendees?
Yeah, thank you, Karen. So yeah, we did have an article about how to use masks safely for especially small business. And also we have a YouTube channel. In this YouTube channel, you can find a lot of interesting videos about health and safety, and you can use these videos for your orientation, training, and daily communication, especially during pandemic. And also on our YouTube channel, you can find a video about how to use masks safely. It's only 2 minutes long, but it's very useful and interesting.
Okay. Do you have any specific tips that you would like to share right now, sort of the top 1 or 2 things people could do right now to improve how they're using masks?
Well, first, because mask is part of the personal protective equipment. But before this, we always recommend to try to consider other control measures such as elimination, administration, and engineering. Try to minimize the risk first. And about personal protective equipment, they always have some limitations. So first, you need to train your workers on how to use those PPE safely first, and train them, educate them on the limitation of those PPE. And you also need to have some measures on how to dispose those PPE safely. Yeah. And first about elimination. So you always try to see whether you can do the business online. Like now, I know a lot of companies or business, they have online service for their customers. And also you can have like curbside pickup or touchless transaction. And also you can have some engineering control, like you can put some barrier in your workplace, and you can redesign your workplace so people will not bump into each other. And back to the question just now about accommodation. Yeah, so as an employer, you must take everything in the circumstances to protect your workers and also protect your visitors. But you can try to accommodate their special needs. For example, I know some customers in our organization, they have some specific schedule or time slots for those customers who cannot wear masks. So in this way, you can protect your workers or your customers, but you can still remain the business. So that's just part of the best practice.
Great, that's a great tip. So scheduling specific times for people that can't wear masks, that's a great tip. Going back to the framework, I think the City of Toronto and some municipalities have actually implemented tougher restrictions than what the Ontario framework has. And is this something that York Region would be considering? And if so, how will this be communicated?
Another good question. So at the moment, we're going with the Ontario framework requirements for the orange zone. Everything's always under consideration. So we have our team looking at the data, both the York Region and the rest of Ontario and our neighbors. We're trying to be as transparent as possible with that. And I think the best source of regular information to get a flavor of that is to listen to the weekly videos posted on york.ca/COVID-19 from Dr. Kurji, our medical officer of health. He gives weekly videos that provide an update of the situation in York Region and in Ontario. And that's the best source for early information on what's just happened recently and what you can expect for the next week. So have a look at those, the weekly videos from Dr. Kurji.
And what day of the week does he post?
Mondays.
Mondays, okay.
Usually on Monday.
That's a good tip. So every Monday, it's good to check out those update videos from our Chief Medical Health Officer. We have another question.
Also follow on, Twitter. We have a Twitter feed, Facebook page, right, to get that information. So besides the videos, if you need updates every 5 minutes, but follow us and follow York Region Public Health on Twitter.
Okay, that's great. And then another question, and this is very specific to the framework. There's reference to square footage in some of the guidelines. For example, different size businesses, gyms, restaurants. It doesn't seem to be tied to square footage. And so, if you have a gym that's, the size of a football field versus the gym that's very small, how does that get factored into whether the restrictions apply?
Right. So it's a good question. So For in the orange stage, it's based on the facility rather than the size of the facility, right? So the let me just open up one here for let's say, for example, for cinemas, right? It doesn't matter how big the cinema is. So the maximum capacity per facility, that's the entire cinema, no matter how many screens indoors, is 50 people indoors, right? So that's the situation in the orange zone. Believe me, nobody likes it, but that's the situation to keep everybody safe. We would love to be able to go back down into the previous zone, into the lower zone, and make things easier for people. It's really, it's heartbreaking to go into a workplace and see that people are not employed where they should be employed. So it's really important that we follow all these health and safety measures so that we can get into a safer zone as soon as possible.
Okay, great. The guidelines also reference the requirement for businesses to have a safety plan.
Right.
And different sectors, whether restaurants, bars, meeting spaces, malls, venues, each have different requirements for that safety plan. And although it's required, it's not something they're submitting. They just have to have it available in case anybody asks. Right. Do you have any other insights into that? Should they be also, if they have a safety plan, updating it as new information comes out?
So definitely, so there's a template safety plan posted on Ontario.ca. So you can also find it in one of the links on the York.ca Prevent COVID-19 website, but there's a template specific for that. And then you also have those various 130, 140 specific guidelines for workplaces to help you define the safety plan. And definitely have to, update it. We went from stage 2 to stage 2 modified to orange zone. And so, you have to keep up to date on the situation and then potentially modify the safety plan. Also, as we know, the advice on safety issues keeps being updated as there's more experience with COVID-19, right? The hazard hasn't changed. A lot of the information available on what to do, what to prevent it, and what measures to put in place are still in development, unfortunately. And so we have to keep up to date to that, and that may require being, it definitely requires being up to date on our safety plan.
Great. And maybe this is for Bill. As Dr. Genesov mentioned, the best practices are evolving as we get more information and experience with this. How is your organization handling these updates and changes?
Yeah, actually, so as the biggest health and safety association in Ontario, and we are serving customers in service, manufacturing, and agricultural sectors. So far, we already create over 100 sector-specific health and safety guidance for our customers. And you can find them in our website. We have a website specific for COVID-19 resources. And just now, I also post a safety plan templates for restaurant and the bar sector. And you can find a lot of best practices from those guidance documents. And so it's just some templates and format. You can, so small business, so they don't need to create from scratch. Although it is not a legal requirement, but we think they are best practice for small business, because we know that now they are struggling with resources and information, and they are struggling with survival. So they don't have enough resources in health and safety. So that's why we created that health and safety document for them.
Right, great. And as Bill mentioned, the link is in the chat box, so do take advantage of that resource. We have another question, which is clarification on eye coverings. I guess that that might be something new. Dr. Genesov, you said it's where you're serving the public, but you can't maintain the 2-meter distance. Is there any specific guidelines around the type of eye coverings and the type of context for that?
Yeah, good question. So let's give the example of a server in a restaurant, right? So the if the server is serving patrons out at tables and the patrons are not wearing a face mask because they're eating or drinking, whatever, then the server, if they're within 2 meters of the patrons, should be wearing eye protection, which in most cases people implement the plastic face shield that covers their face, right? So that is a new requirement through through Ontario and from the Ministry of Labor.
Okay, great. And then in terms of, and actually I think this might be a question, there's lots of references to websites, both the province, the region, workforce, health and safety. So posting all this information is really helpful, but sometimes when someone's not sure, it helps to actually talk to somebody. And what's the best contact point to have somebody answer a question? Assuming they've reviewed all of these documents and they still have a question or they need just some clarification, where would you suggest they go?
Excellent question. So there's 2 very good resources at hand. One is my colleague Bill Chen from Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. So 100% utilize their services, Workplace Safety and Prevention Services, an excellent organization with great advice. And really, that's a resource for all business leaders here in the York region to utilize. For specific questions also, as I mentioned, Access York, so you can email accessyork@york.ca or call Access York at phone numbers 1-877-464-9675. So that's posted on the york.ca website. So you can call or email Access York for questions. I think for practical implementation in your type of workplace, I strongly recommend Workplace Safety and Prevention Services. As Bill mentioned, they've tailored a lot of resources for a whole range of different businesses, and that practical advice there. And Bill's posted his contact information in the chat box. I will personally vouch for him and his great information and his great organization.
Terrific, thank you. There's another question about dance classes. So if there are, it's an indoor dance class, no more than 50, is there a limit to how many can be in a dance class? Is there a difference between competitive and recreational? And then is mask wearing mandatory during physical activity? Boy, so we got a lot in there. So let's start with dance classes, or I guess any sort of physical exercise type class that's indoors.
Right.
Are there limits?
So I have to admit, when it comes to the dance classes, dance studios, it's a little confusing to me also, and a little hard to keep up to date. I think there's one you want to send a note to the email accessyork@york.ca and get the specific requirements for dance classes. It wasn't posted specifically in the framework, and there were some changes to requirements specifically for dance classes and dance studios that I want to give you the incorrect information, but maybe I can give it to you, Karen, afterwards to forward to the folks. That's a complex one. It was a subject to a bit of social media a few weeks ago, and to keep that straight in my mind is it's a bit of a challenge with everything else. But let me get you I'll send you the latest information afterwards to pass on to folks.
Okay, thanks, Dr. Jennifer. So for the person that asked that question, we will be sending the updates that Dr. Genesov shares with us after the session. I didn't realize there were complexities for this, but apparently there are. So let's make sure we get you the absolute most current and correct information. We have another question, and this is concerning a personal services setting, so a spa, where I guess the person wasn't able to get their question answered from York Public Health and was directed to Toronto Public Health COVID guidelines for nails and aesthetics. Is that still the right way to go?
So I'm not sure what the specific question is. So there's for personal service settings, again on Ontario.ca, there's a set of guidelines, and I believe through WSPS also we've got some guidelines also that will help for that. And I don't remember if there's a specific guideline on the York.ca website. I have to look for that also, but certainly on the Ontario.ca website, there's workplace guidelines that for that. And Bill, you have, there you go. So Bill's pretty quick on the draw, and he's posted the link to the resources.
Yeah, we did have a sector-specific guidelines for personal care service sector.
There you go. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. So this may or may not be a fair question, but crystal ball time. What do you see happening over the next, actually, I'm going to break it up into 2 periods. So from now sort of to the end of the year, but what do you foresee for the 2021? Businesses are trying to figure out their plans, and what do you foresee to the best of your knowledge?
Well, the first thing is we cannot move into a state of fatigue, which is unfortunate, but we're seeing it now sometimes in terms of COVID fatigue. So we can't do that. But that's going to become more prevalent, more prominent, I think, as the measures extend. A lot of it's going to depend on the vaccine, when the vaccine is available, right? So I think that's going to be the game changer. And when the vaccine will be available is a whole other webinar question and to look at. But really, that's what we're waiting for. The best thing is if people are really good with implementation of the measures, and we can move down to the protect zone, or hopefully the prevent zone one day, it'll make it a lot easier for us. It'll depend on how we implement the measures right now.
Okay. I have a question for Bill. So Bill, your organization had a lot of these sector-specific guidelines and safety plans. Have all of those been updated now with the new framework from the province, and then as the updates are coming out from the province?
To be honest with you, no. But I think from the perspective of health and safety, especially during pandemic, they are all best practice, and they are all workers of our experienced consultant. So I think employers can still refer to those documents.
Okay, great. And in terms of your accessibility, absolutely, you're doing great work. Are you finding that you're able to be responsive to businesses as these things changing? We're directing a lot your way, I guess, is where I'm going with this. And are you guys able to support that? Oh, that's for Bill, by the way.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Yeah. Your organization is doing such great work, and we're directing a lot of people your way through this session. So I just want to make sure that you're ready to go for all the people asking. Like, are you finding that you're able to be responsive to the inquiries coming in?
They can always ask me questions, but you know what? Because an information, the resources I provide today is just for information purpose only, and cannot be specific consulting for any specific workplace. As you know, each workplace is different and their business operation is quite different. So if they have more questions, they can always email me or call me. And we have a free consulting program for small business under 20 persons. Because they are small, they don't have enough resources, manpower, budget, or time for business for health and safety. So we create a free consulting program for them, especially under COVID-19 pandemic. So if they have questions, they can call me, email me, or they can use our free consulting program.
Great. That's the really good reminder, you know, that if you do have specific instances, there is that great resource available to give you the specific implementation guidance. So we have a question here from the Newmarket Soccer Club. And so before the new framework was rolled out, they were allowed to have 50 players on their indoor field. Coaches, parents, referees, staff didn't count. Although they did encourage parents to drop the children off if they could. Now that the new framework is rolled out, it's a rigid limit of 50 people in the indoor facility, and all, I guess this is the question, all parents, coaches, players, spectators, etc., count towards that total number. So I think this might be more for Dr. Genesov. So 50 was originally just for the players, and now it's 50 total people within the facility. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, it's a total of 50. So it's a maximum of 50 people per facility in the program. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So for the attendee that asked that question, it looks like that is a hard and fast rule. We're getting close to the end of our session, so I wanted to just ask you, Bill and Dr. Genesov, for any sort of concluding thoughts or tips that you want to share with people.
I can only say that now, because we are a not-for-profit health and safety association, so we have a lot of free resources for businesses, especially for small businesses. So I already shared my contact information, and if you have any question, feel free to call me or email me. Okay, we are here to cover your back.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Karen, for inviting me. It's great. I think it's a great opportunity to share our resources with so many small business owners, and it's good to see some old friends here again.
Great, thank you, thank you. Leon, any questions? Final sort of thoughts?
So one, just emphasizing again the basics of public health hygiene have to be implemented and followed. For small businesses, just a reminder that there's resources at york.ca, our York Region Small Business Economic Center, and we partner with the Newmarket Chamber of Commerce, the Vaughan Chamber of Commerce. We have strong partnerships that are continuing on, and look for please utilize those resources from the Chamber of Commerce and from our Small Business Economic Center.
Great, thanks. And as you shared earlier, please, if you haven't got your flu shot yet, please go get it. And let's try and keep everybody safe. And before we just sign off, I'll just throw it over to Tracy and Brian. Do you guys have any comments for the businesses, your members?
Well, hey, it's Brian. Karen, great job today. No, I wanted to thank Bill and Dr. Genesov. And Dr. Genesov, we'll take you up on that offer for you to come back and talk about when the vaccine will be ready and how they're going to roll that out. But I think that, I like the comments we were seeing today. I think the soccer club question was fair. I think questions on getting specifics to your industry vertical are fair. People just trying to get clarification so they can follow the guidelines. So I appreciate that you guys came on again.
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
Yeah, really same here. I mean, we hear a lot of questions from businesses. I know this is your livelihood. I know this is confusing. I know that, you know, a group of kids coming in without a mask and having all your other customers leave and maybe not come back is very concerning for you. So reach out to people like Bill who can help you with some of those pieces. And if we need to bring on a consultant in other areas, reach out to Karen, let us know, because we'll have another session to provide you access to those resources. And again, thank you, Dr. Genesov. I mean, your time is invaluable, and giving it to the businesses is really important to us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so with that, I would like to just conclude by thanking everybody for attending and thanking our speakers for sharing their time and experience and expertise. It's very reassuring to know about the wealth of resources that are there for businesses to support them. And just a quick reminder to all of our attendees that we will be following up, sending an email to you with both the link to the recording of the session and then Dr. Genesov's clarification around dance studios. So keep an eye out for that. That will be coming. If you want to receive that communication at an email address other than the one you used to register for the session, please reach out and let me know. But other than that, keep an eye out for that. Hopefully within the next 24 hours, we will have that question answered for you. Okay, thanks everybody for your time today. We really, really appreciated your engagement, and please stay safe, and we'll get through this together. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.